Hello! Welcome back to another stream. How is everyone doing? Oh, right. Okay, just getting myself adjusted and warmed up. What have we got? Water. We've got coffee. Glasses. Yep, got glasses on. I can see the screen. That's always good. Mouse. Nope, no mouse. Guess we're going trackpad then. Good old trackpad. Hi, David. Dilshan. Sabina, let's go. Exactly. Rebecca, hello. Sema, welcome back. Right, what am I doing? What have I forgotten? Hopefully nothing. Hey, Floyda, have a great stream, Dan. Hey. Hey, Rich. Hey, welcome back. Thumbs up. Yeah, I thought it'd be fun to do a bit of illustration today. I'm actually doing some for my own website on dansky.com. Basically the sales page for my Illustrator course. Don't worry, we'll get to the promo segment in a minute. The sales page, like, it was great when it launched, but I just want to get a bit more visual oomph on there. I just want it to kind of have some nice illustrations, and I've got a few that I'm really happy with now, and I might add some more, but I just thought it'd be really beneficial to kind of go through the process of how I created these today, because I don't do loads of illustrative stuff on a regular basis. It's like B-roll for videos. I've learned how to do it, and I do it when I need to, but it's not like part of my day-to-day. And because it's not part of my day-to-day, generally I find that stuff it takes a little bit longer, because I'm always seeking that like quality. You know, when I'm filming B-roll, I'm looking at Peter McKinnon, Peter Lindgren, all these Peters that are very handy with a camera, and I'm rightly or wrongly kind of trying to hit that type of quality, even though I don't have the experience to back it up. And so when I'm kind of doing things that are much more illustrative like this, it's the same kind of thing. I don't do illustration on a regular basis, so I'm trying to hit that quality. And I think when you're starting out as well, it can be very, very easy to look at some great work from people, and you can be inspired, but you can also get a bit discouraged, and then you can look at your work, and then the self-doubt starts to creep in, and you think, you know, this is rubbish, my work's rubbish, I'm rubbish. Do you know what I mean? Like, you go down that kind of that more destructive thought process, and you know, I'm not exempt from that. I get that sort of negative self-talk sometimes in my head. I've become more aware of it now, so I can kind of identify when I'm thinking that. And in the past, and this is a good example now, as I'll show you later on, you know, I've had that kind of self-doubt, and then I've obliterated it by just putting the necessary time into creating something I'm really proud of. And every time I do that, I prove to myself that, oh, actually, you can do it if you just kind of shut up, get your head down for a few hours or a few days, get on with it, and just give it the care and attention that the design work or the project needs. And actually, you can, you know, I think personally, I found that actually on some things I'm more capable than I actually thought I was. So yeah, I hope that if you are watching this stream, then that there's kind of these sort of undertones of hope in there. You know, so the next time you're trying to do something that might be perhaps a little bit outside your comfort zone, just think back to this stream and just give it a go and persevere. Don't give up, and just yeah, you might be surprised at what you can actually do. You switched the clocks in Old Blighty, haven't you? What does that mean? Only on for a few minutes, and then I've got to run to a meeting. Oh no, Reese, not another one. Not another one. It's fine, just cancel it. It's 5 p.m. here already, so I'm not going to be able to hang around too long. Family time. Oh no. I'm currently down in the rabbit hole. It's all rubbish, and you never submit for review. Oh no. No, we've got to train that negative self-talk out. And I think the more you kind of do that, the more you become aware of it, you can identify when you're doing it. Then you'll go and persevere with a project. You'll make something awesome, and then you'll think, huh, if I had actually listened to that little negative voice in my head, I wouldn't have made this thing. So the more you do it, the more you kind of realize that actually it's all rubbish and we're actually all more incredible than we realize. Greetings from Mars. Nice. Right. Well, I hope I haven't overhyped everything I'm about to show you, but just for my own sanity, I am going to be drawing. I have been doing a lot of this with a pen tablet or a pen display. I'm going to get a mouse because doing this with a trackpad is just really unpleasant, whereas a mouse is just slightly less so. So give me 2 seconds. I'm going to go and grab my mouse and I will be back. Unless I trip over the camera, at which point the stream will abruptly end. He's got the mouse. Mouse is here. Carefully walk around the tiny studio and not trip over 10,000 cables scattered everywhere. Right, ka-ching, mouse. Please have battery connected. There we go, that's good. Whew, that's a good start. Oh, daylight savings time. I know. We got an extra hour. Love the look and feel of these little vignettes. Yeah, so this is an interesting one. So basically, as I mentioned, I'll show you the course page. We'll get the shameless plug out of the way. So what do we got? Down screen. So this is what it's for. And just before we kick off, if anyone does want to check out my Adobe Illustrator Masterclass, this is it. It's been updated with lessons for 2024. And as you scroll down, there's some blurb, what I think makes this course special, more information. We've got some graphics here and stuff like that. A bit about the community. If you ever get stuck, you can just message me. There's a sample lesson and more information here. And I think it's fine. It's serviceable, but I just wanted to include some more visual things on this page, and just so that kind of led me down the path of restructuring the page in its entirety, which is kind of what I'm working on now, but then actually producing some graphics that are more than just like, you got some stuff here. These are a few things that we create in the course, and then there's these icons here, and yeah, they're nice and smart and whatever, but I think it needs to be more visual. So I'll just throw that link in the chat if you do want to check out the masterclass. Is, as I say, everything that I've learned in the last 17 years condensed down into a course. So if you want to know everything I know about Illustrator, that is it. And so I really wanted to focus on doing 3 illustrations for some different categories that are going to be about learning. So it needed to be a learning illustration because that's what you do. You follow the videos and you learn. Then there's going to be a create illustration or design, something like that. Essentially, the practical application of what you've learned. And then there's going to be an illustration for share. So essentially sharing the work you've created with me or the community. And then there would need to be some kind of graphic representing that, that sharing process or the communication side of it. So learn, create, and share. That's kind of what I was working with from the beginning. And yeah, drawing characters and people, that is, I mean, if illustration and more illustrative stuff is like a bit outside my comfort zone, drawing people is a long way out of my comfort zone. Just because I don't do it. It's one of those things. I think I find it easier to draw inanimate objects than human beings. My human beings look a bit wonky. Poppy's quite good. She's got quite a nice cartoony style, but mine are just generally awful. So what I did was I actually enlisted the help of Midjourney here, which if you've ever tuned into these streams before, I'm not crazy about AI. It's all just AI everything at the minute. It does have its uses. But then there's certain things where it's just not great and it's just kind of AI everything all the time and it's a bit exhausting. But here it was actually quite useful. in that it gave me a starting point or a bit of inspiration and some ideas as to how I could go with these graphics. So I kind of generated a chap who, they both seem to have beard and glasses, so this is, I guess, stereotypical male designer, but not ginger though, unfortunately, but that might have been a bit too much for the prompts. And they kind of encapsulate what I really liked. I just saw these illustrations and was like, I really like these. This one here is probably a bit more in line with my style. Very kind of simple, clean lines, a lot of lines that are the same width. Yeah, a bit of shading for the shadows and highlights. I really do like this style in general. And this one's probably a bit less 2D and it's a bit more three-dimensional. Again, you've got the kind of shadows and things. And whilst, you know, I could just get Midjourney to spit out a bunch of graphics, I thought, you know, I'm selling a course about using Adobe Illustrator. I think the graphics that are going to be on this page, they need to be something that I've created. I didn't want to use AI to just kind of generate some stuff. And then the style between the three graphics, would it be consistent? Probably wouldn't be the same character if I was going to have a character. So this was a great starting point. It just gave me some ideas. And then I was able to kind of go from there and just do a very, very rough trace. So this was using the rectangle tool, as you can imagine here. And what did I use? I used the pencil tool. So it's under the shaper tool. And then double click the pencil tool. And depending on the shape of your design, you can crank the smoothness up or you can kind of bring it down to the middle. And what I have is keep selected and edit selected paths checked. And yeah, what it enabled me to do is very easily, and this is with a mouse as well. So as you can imagine, drawing with a pen, tablet or display is just even easier. It enabled me to draw some really smooth curves. Now, if you try and draw too many of these, like that, and you've got the smoothness too high, it will round them off too much. So what I was doing is I would do one line like this for the hair. That's cool. And then position the cursor exactly where that last anchor point ends. And as long as this line is selected, it will continue that path. So I'll just go a few times and stop, click and drag, let go. So I'm continuously letting go of the mouse and drawing each one again until I get a curve that I'm happy with. There we go. So each line is its own separate path. I'm obviously not going to do the whole thing, but let's go around and join that up. And you can see, because I was clicking on that last anchor point and the whole path that was already selected, when I'm using the pencil tool, it's joining everything up. So let's just say I've got these two lines here and I want to connect these together. There is a tool actually called the join tool, but I find this frustrating more than useful. You're supposed to be able to do this and it joins lines together, but it only works in specific instances and if they're close. So I think they need to be, let's try something like this. It's one of those annoying tools. I think it's been around a while and I've just never, yeah, so you can kind of do that. Yeah, so it can be useful, but sometimes it doesn't work and it's just annoying. So I think it's kind of learning where those tolerances are. Yeah, see, like, why is that just not joining it? It seems to be kind of restricted by distance, or perhaps maybe it does really just kind of work better on paths that overlap. Yeah, it's one of those things that if you can kind of, if you have the patience to learn it, can be very useful, but sometimes you just end up kind of going, come on, why aren't you working? And it causes more frustration with the inconsistency of how it works. But yeah, what you can do as well, what I was going to show you before I got distracted, was you can also use the pencil tool. So as long as I've got both of these lines selected, I can actually click on one of these points and then we'll go and fill in the middle like this. And it will actually join those two pieces together. So as you can imagine, it makes illustrating this kind of stuff freehand, especially with the smooth features on, just much, much easier. Jatty says, how was parents' evening? Did they make you even prouder? Yeah, no, it was great. I mean, you know, the youngest is a 3-year-old, so you know, he is what he is. What he is. He's a ball of energy, but no, it's all good. A few things that he could work on and stuff like that. I think it was like mostly about asking more open questions, which is actually a really good tip generally, even for adults in conversation. If you ask closed questions like, do you like my face? I mean, obviously that's a bit of a weird question. Do you like my face? Yes or no? Are you happy with the weather today? No or yes. It's like, do you know what I mean? There's nowhere to go from that. Whereas when you ask open-ended questions like, how do you feel about my face? Or what are your thoughts on the weather today? That's what we do in Britain. We just ask about the weather and then collectively complain, grumble, very miserable, rainy. So those open questions that prompt something more than a no or a yes, that's really good just in general for keeping a conversation flowing, but it's also good for young children apparently and kind of developing their learning, because it's very easy for a kid to go yes or no. You say, you know, do you like sweets? Yes or no. But then if you ask them, well, what is it about the sweets that you find particularly fascinating? It kind of gets their brain thinking a little bit more. So even if they don't have the words at that age to kind of verbalize exactly what they mean, it at least gets those parts of the brain developing a bit more. Quentin says, those pics look a bit like me when I was younger and skinnier. Younger and skinnier. Amen, Quentin. Oh. I still have 50 minutes before 12 p.m. to watch the stream. It's 11 p.m. Oh, wow. Good morning, Dan. Well, thank you for jumping on so late. David says, I like that you have faces on your illustrations. I see so many faceless figures out there on product landing pages. Yes, well, that's an interesting one, actually, because I find drawing the characters and the people quite challenging, but actually the facial expressions and the faces I find just as hard. And if you draw like the perfect silhouette for a person and you mess up the eyes or the nose or the mouth in particular, you can really, especially the eyes, you can really ruin an illustration, as I've done many times before. So what I did is actually, in the end, you'll see later, I went for a more stylized approach that actually kind of focused on the hair and the beard and then a bit of nose, but actually the character doesn't have any eyes or mouth. And so I'll be curious to see what you think to that. But anyway, yeah, that's a really cool drawing tip with the pencil tool. Use the join tool if you got the patience. And this was kind of the first sketch. And I was looking at this going, all right, okay, I can work with this. Cool. First, let's change the magenta to black. So what I did was, no, not that version. I've got these the wrong way around. Right. So first thing I did was I created this version that you're seeing here in black and white. So, oh goodness, hang on. Oh, there we go. Yeah, I was smart this time. I used layers, although, oh no, the color isn't on layers. Okay, hang on. Oh, this is going to take a while. But I actually this time used a tool that I don't normally use, and that was the blob brush tool. I'll show you a couple of ways that you can fill in illustrations as well. Blob brush is one of them. Not something I use an awful lot, but actually because I was working mostly with this one on a pen display, I thought, you know what? I feel like I want to feel a bit like an artist. I want to get a bit of the old drawing and brushing on the go, kind of like when I was a kid. Before I became utterly obsessed with technology, I actually used to hold pens and pencils, believe it or not. So it was quite nice to... it's quite relaxing, actually. It's almost like... Do you know what it's like? It's like colouring in. It's like having a drawing and doing a colouring book. and it was almost quite meditative, actually. So, yeah. So imagine that's all black and white. I'm not going to spend all day removing it, but the first step was to do the line work in black and white minus all of the color. And I kind of did this and thought, yeah, that's all right. It's not a bad start. Then just kind of threw in some color just to sort of see how it looked. In fact, I will get rid of the rest, because then I'm going to show you the blob brush tool. So that was the first step. It was just doing the kind of line drawing. You can do this pencil and paper if you want to, or if you feel more comfortable doing that. But for me, I'm a bit of a digital bean. I always have been. And, you know, with pen displays and tablets and what have you that I've accrued over time, it's just easier for me just to kind of hook that up to my computer and then just kind of do the freehand stuff on there. Right. Okay. Oh, no. Don't get rid of the glasses. Right. Last one, and we've painstakingly removed all of the color. There we go. That took all of 3 minutes. Yeah, so this is kind of where I got to, and I was like, do you know what? This has got some legs to it. I could actually work with this. So the next step was actually to go and throw some color in. So I just kind of went ahead, threw some color in, just to see how it looked. Now, when I do something like this, there's always like a kind of mistake, or a mental mistake that I make, in that I'll throw some solid colors in like this, and I'll look at it and go, it's all right. And that's when in this particular instance, that little bit of self-doubt started creeping in. Now, bear in mind, I've not added any of the highlights or anything that would really kind of make this look, in my opinion, great, by adding highlights or maybe gradients, or, you know, maybe even refining it so the beard isn't so flat and the eyes aren't coming the glasses aren't coming a mile away from his head. You know, I've literally barely just got started. I've thrown in some color and I've already kind of, you know, the self-doubt's already starting to creep in. So that is just something to be aware of, you know. Don't put like an hour into a design and then think it's rubbish and bin it. Sometimes you've got to really kind of persevere with it and put the time into it to really kind of see the how good the result can be. And it's one of those things as well. If you rush it, which I do a lot with my Photoshop retouching, I get a bit impatient and I try and rush things, and then I get a rubbish result, and then I get annoyed and frustrated or whatever. So patience and perseverance, definitely two underrated skills that I think all creatives would benefit, including me, from keeping in mind. Floyda says AI is great for a reference and inspiration, definitely not for the final work. No, I think it depends. Like for me personally, I don't know, maybe my mind will change at some point, but I love the craft, and I wouldn't, you know, if I was working on a project and the kind of imagery side of it was not even secondary, it was like, you know, tertiary, it was really sort of a smaller part of the deliverables, yeah, maybe, or if it was a mock-up for something. But if it was a client, for example, there's no way that I would knock something up in AI and send it over. Would not happen. You know, the client is paying for me and my unique style and all that stuff. So everything that makes me unique. So for me to kind of use AI to do the creative work in its entirety, for me, would be an absolute no-no. You know, I'm very much about the craft. I love the craft, and I've got a lot of dedication, but also a lot of skill when it comes to pointing out and identifying the finer details. You probably heard me talk about this before. You know, I might not be as creative as some other designers out there, but my eye for detail is just like a hawk. That's kind of one of my things that I'm really good at. Wondering how you will look in this beard. Yeah, I do need to get the beard a little bit longer. What I'll do is I'll grow it longer. It'll get a few more inches on the beard, and then I'll just wake up one morning and decide to shave it all off. I've got such a baby face under here, honestly. If I ever want to take 10 years off my look, just go and have a clean shave. It's been Oh, it's been many moons since my chin has seen the sun, so I've got no idea what my face actually looks like anymore. Sabina says my drawing skills are not good. I will try my best fighting. Yes, that's the spirit. I mean, my drawing skills aren't exactly like the hand drawing skills aren't brilliant in that sense as well. I did a lot of it when I was younger, and then I just kind of fell in love with the technology side of it. And as soon as I got my hands on Photoshop 7 back in the day, that was it. I was just technology and Adobe apps all the way. So I'm sure if I dedicated the time to drawing, I'd get better at it, but I don't. So I just don't think I enjoy it in the same way. I guess if I enjoyed it, I'd do it more, right? Hi from Madagascar. Wow. I've got no idea what Madagascar is actually like. I just have the cartoon Madagascar in my head. I can't say I've ever been. Typing on my phone and leaving words out everywhere. It's fine, Quentin. I just miss out words occasionally as well. Instead of like saying, like I love you to the kids, it's just I you. That's it. Get this glazed look from the 3-year-old. Magic wand tool. Yes, I don't use this enough either. Yeah, so I could click on that to select all of that, but because I have a bunch of stuff on the artboard, it will select other instances of it. You can double click the magic wand tool and you do get a few more options. So if I was a little bit less lazy, yeah, you could use this to make specific color selections. Or you could select this graphic actually and go to edit colors and then recolor. And I could switch out and change these colors to white. That's probably a much quicker way of doing this. But I need to kind of show you the paintbrush tool. So I need transparency behind there rather than a color. But yeah, anyway. Hey Dansky, what about drawing in Figma? Some of my graphic designers are positive about using Figma, but in a limited capacity. Not something I've ever done. Figma is, well, firstly, Figma is great. I love it for UI stuff. Just really, really well designed bit of software. Drawing, no, I wouldn't recommend it because the tool set is just so limited. In Illustrator, I've got the brush tool, I've got the smooth tool, I've got the new smooth slider. I got pen tools, I got brush tools, I got blob brush tools. So if it's anything, icons, simple icons, yeah, you could probably even do complex icons in Figma, to be honest. But anything that is, in my opinion anyway, remotely illustrative, I've got more tools that enable me to control the curves and the corners of those illustrations in Illustrator. Obviously, that doesn't fit kind of every style. Some styles, very geometric shapes, you could absolutely do in Figma and they would look excellent. But, if it was something like this, for example, I wouldn't do this in Figma personally. But it's like anything, I'm sure you could create an amazing illustration using Microsoft Paint if you've got the the patience and the experience. Figma is, I guess you could say, I think it's fair to say it's primarily used for UI design and UX design. It's essentially digital design software, typically used for creating apps and websites. And the advantage to using that software is that you can do the designs on the specific sizes for the devices, but you can also firstly, well, you could hook up your phone, for example, and see how your design actually looks on the device it's going to be viewed on, which is incredibly useful. But also you can create an interactive prototype. So let's say you have a client, you could design them an app, you could then link up all the pages, add loads of animation, transitions, and you could actually send that to your client and they could view that on the phone. And they could actually then navigate with swipes and taps your design, and it gives them a much more true to life idea of how the final product will look. and actually behave. And it's great as well because you can wireframe your designs in Figma. A wireframe is essentially like a completely styleless, well, it's literally a wireframe. It's just like, you know, a quick, dirty mock-up with boxes and text and lots of gray usually. No design whatsoever, but it's meant to identify kind of issues in the user journey and the user experience. So, for example, you might kind of basically, rather than building the entire and creating the entire app and then thinking, oh, actually, this is a bit of a frustrating, clunky experience, what you do is you identify those issues up front by wireframing your app or your website in Figma. Then once you've got a solid foundation and you know it's not going to irritate everyone who lands on the page or whatever, then you start adding the design, the icing on the cake, so to speak. And I've got this ridiculous analogy. There's no point having a cake that looks amazing if it tastes like absolute garbage when someone eats it. And so, yes, the looks are important, the taste is important, but yeah, so that's my Figma cake analogy. Completely Corey. Hey, Dan. Hello, Corey. Welcome. I've never seen you without a beard, and you probably never will. Trust me, it's not a good look. I don't know. Maybe if I lost like 5 stone and had like a nice chiseled jawline in my 40s, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I could pull it off, but Poppy's not keen. She's like, just do not shave. Please, Dan, never shave. Dan the man, good to see you again. Scrappy Coco, hello. King Ananda, oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I know Tansky's secret. He doesn't know what he looks like under the beard, but the truth is he's Thanos under there. Yeah. Thanos with that purple chiseled chin. Ben Harris, welcome. We use Figma for a mobile banking app, prototyping for usability testing. Exactly, yeah. Hello from Pakistan. Oh, welcome. Gia Design. Shark Bro, hello. Love your tutorials. Oh, thank you. Amazing. If you don't shave, you'll never know. Nice. I see. You're teasing, you're piquing my curiosity there. I wonder what I look like under the beard now. Nerdlingers. I like it. That'll make a great t-shirt. Nerdlinger. Right. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. 2005 beard OG. But I think back then I had the like chin strap, you know, the thin down the sides, thin down the bottom. Oh, it just, no. Maybe if you're lucky one day I'll get some old pictures up and we can all just sit here and have a laugh at how I used to look. That'll be fun. For you, not for me. For me it'd be highly embarrassing. So Dan, what we're looking at is this traced. That's a good point. Let's stay focused. Hey, Dan from Texas. Love your vids and streams. Thank you, Devin. I appreciate that. Right, yes. So this was kind of version 1. So I did this. I went to bed. I woke up and was like, okay, this is fine. I need to work on it. And it was kind of really about just seeing how it looked with color. And it looked all right. It looks okay. So if I go and grab the black and white one, firstly, what I did is I switched over from properties to the layers panel. And as you can see, I've tried to be very, oh, hang on. I already, oh, no. Let's move that over here. I'll move this over here. There we go. So what I've tried to do is keep all of my line work on the top layer. I've kept all of the kind of shadows and highlights that you'll see later on that middle green layer. And then the color is on the red layer at the bottom. I don't think it is in this document because I copied this over from the main document, but that's how I structured it anyway. So if I kind of work with this now, you can see if I select this, everything's blue. because it's on that layer. So you can just add new layers from the bottom, double click the layer and just give it colors. And this is kind of essential because what it means is you can turn off the lines or the color, basically any aspect of the design at will. And and it's pretty essential. So I've got the lines here. I'm going to lock that layer, select the color layer. And what I used was the blob brush tool. Now I will show you another way to do this first. So there is one way of doing this. You can select everything here, go to Object and not expand. What do we want? It's under the Shape Builder tool and it's called Live Paint Bucket. So if I hover over this, I can click to make this a live paint group. And where are my colors? Yeah, let's go and pick a color. There we go. And what we can do is we can just so I've got it set to stroke at the minute. Let's swap that around. There we go. I can very quickly and easily add color to the design. As you can see, this is incredibly quick. And let's change that color again. We'll go for a yellow this time. Whoa, that is some serious yellow. I'm just kind of throwing in a bunch of colors. So as you can see, you can use this to color the design up. Now this is a live paint group, so there's not a lot else you can do with this. You can edit some paths and things, but what I would recommend is once you've colored it up, just go and expand it. Don't expand the stroke, because if we uncheck this, we can still keep the stroke editable. That's important because you might want to change the curves or the line thickness. But we can expand all of the fills and the object being the live paint group. So let's go ahead and click OK. That's all grouped together. So let's just ungroup it. There we go. So we've got all of the color now. And I can just cut that, edit and cut, and then go to this layer and then paste it on this layer. And you can see it's all red now, indicating it's on this layer. And I can kind of turn these off and on. And we've got some nice clean fills, and I can work with that. And this would have been a much smarter way to do it, but like I say, I actually really enjoyed the coloring in process. So I actually opted to go the longer, more enjoyable route. It's kind of like going to a destination, but instead you go the long way through the country because it's just nice to see the countryside and the trees and maybe a few sheep and cows in fields. That's what I did here. So this is the fast way to do it with the Live Paint Bucket tool. And what else was I going to say? Yeah, you can ungroup again, I think. There you go. Ungroup again, and you've got all the pieces. And they're nice and clean cut. So you get a much cleaner result. So yeah, this is the way to do it, unless you want to, as I say, take the more scenic route, which is what I did. Which I'll show you now. So let's get rid of all the color. And again, I'm working from this color layer. And I'm going to grab the blob brush tool. And this is under the paintbrush tool. And if your toolbar doesn't look like any of this, just make sure from the bottom you've got the advanced tool set enabled. The basic one doesn't have a lot of the tools. It's got like the kind of the core ones, but this is the advanced tool set and we have much more to choose from. So, blob brush. Please go away panel. Thank you. Shift B is the shortcut. And we can use the left and right square brackets on the keyboard to adjust the size, very similar to Photoshop. And I can just brush this in. Now, by default, no, we're working on two different layers, so that doesn't matter. I'll just show you a little trick. So let's say you are working on the same layer. Typically when you're coloring in stuff, you'll do this, right? And you've just literally drawn over the black, and then you have to go and send it to the back, all this kind of stuff. If you are working on one layer, go and check this option here. See right at the bottom of the toolbar, it says draw behind, and the shortcut is Shift D. And now what I do, if I click and drag, so you can see it's still in front, but as soon as I let go, it draws behind. So it will automatically just put this at the back. So if you're working on one layer, this is a great way to kind of do this. But because we've got our layers set up here, And the color layer is underneath the lines anyway. It doesn't matter because anything I draw on this layer, it's always going to be under the black lines. So this was pretty much the process. So let's go for ginger. Ginger. There we go. Let's brush that in. Yeah. So as you can see, this takes considerably longer doing this for the whole design, but it is quite fun. Or what you could do is you could do this for the character if you really wanted to, and then the big, large background, rather than do that bit with live trace. So it's entirely up to you. But I really enjoyed this process. I thoroughly enjoyed just doing a bit of late night colouring whilst listening to music. It was very nice. Should we give me ginger arms as well? No, maybe not. So yeah, let's go and pick another colour and go for a blue for the t-shirt. Blue and orange generally work quite nicely together. Or blue and ginger, should I say? What colour's your hair? Orange. Did used to be when I was little. I was a proper little redhead when I was younger, but as I've got older, that blonde has crept in. I've got ginger hair on my beard, and then a blonde head. Right, so there we go. We've got blue, and we could add in some skin tones and other colours if we want. Let's just do one more. We'll do, remember Shift B for this tool. We're just going to brush in there. And this is not too bad with a mouse. It's even more enjoyable with a pen display or a tablet. And with a blob brush tool, you can double click this. And of course, you get more options. So you can have keep selected or merge with selection to kind of merge everything you do into one path. You can adjust the smoothness and the brush shape, all this kind of stuff. And if you do have a pen, tablet, or display, for example, the size can then be dictated by pressure. So that is how you kind of activate the pressure feature for your brush. So if you press down a little bit, you'll get like a tiny line. And if you press down really hard, then you will get a chunkier, thicker line. Oh, this is a nice red. Look at that punchy red. And with this technique, just definitely zoom in and make sure you didn't miss any. That is one of the downsides. Apart from the fact it's a much longer, just make sure you zoom in and don't miss any. You see here, I've missed that tiny gap. So you will need to go in and just kind of brush into it. Another downside is if you kind of use the settings I'm using, you can end up with lots of pieces of color. Fortunately, it's merged mine all together, but you can end up with, yeah, it's merging mine together, but you can end up with lots of pieces of the same color, so it can be a little bit clunky. Edit the beard in. What is the best way about doodling something in Procreate and then recreating it in Illustrator so it's vector? Oh, that's a really good question. Oh, okay. All right. That is a really good question. We're going to segue ever so slightly. I'll just show you this. So let's go and Procreate. I don't think that's vector based, is it? So once you've kind of drawn something like brushes and things, if you scale it up, would it pixelate? I haven't used Procreate in a while. I did used to have it on an iPad. But let's say you draw something in Procreate, and I will rasterize this to kind of try and simulate that. So we'll go for white. And let's scale that up a bit. There we go. So you see a nice little bit of pixelation there. So let's just, oh, actually, hang on. I wonder if I can try and be clever. Let's try and do something really clever. Not that. Okay. It's probably a little bit much, isn't it? I'm trying to add a slight imperfection to the design. Let's try this anyway. We'll try it. There is a trick I can show you how well it'll work. I'm not sure. It might do. So let's take that and then rasterize it. Nice little trick if you want to kind of roughen the edges and make your work feel a bit more hand-drawn. And we've got a pixelated version. Let's scale that up. So yeah, let's just pretend that this has come in from Procreate. Oh no, now I have to go. Quentin, no! Stay with us. Don't abandon us for your family. If it was a chin strap only in the US, we tend to call that a Yoda beard, or the type Amish like. Oh, okay. Try a handlebar mustache. Do you know what, Quentin? I've always wondered if I could get like a decent mustache and I could pull it off. I don't know. Maybe get one of those like big oversized villain style mustaches that I can kind of twizzle the ends. That would be very nice. Do you know, I actually saw someone with one of those the other day. My goodness, he looks so cool. Dude must have been about 50 or 60. He was rocking that villain tash with the curly edges and it just looked amazing. Oh, sorry, Jonas. How do you make the circle smaller and bigger with a shortcut? Ooh, definitely check out one of my latest YouTube short videos. It demos how I move around so fast, a few tools and shortcuts and things. So if I've got a square, right, I can resize it from the corner, but I press S on the keyboard. And we can't see anything because it's got no color. Let's add a color first, Dan. There we go. So if I press S on the keyboard, that is the shortcut for the scale tool. That's over here. And I can freely resize this from the center. If I hold down Shift, it will kind of maintain those proportions. It can kind of jib out a little bit. As you can see here, it goes a bit wild. If it does that, just move your cursor away from that central anchor point and just scale it up and down like this, nice and slowly, holding Shift. This also works for anchor points as well. So if you select the top two anchor points, just these two, and then use the scale tool, you can scale them outwards to the side. As you can see, this tool can be a bit temperamental. So just start wide and just do it bit by bit if you need to. Yeah, so there's a great way to kind of scale multiple anchor points as well. Whoa, as you can see, you can go pretty wild with it. And the other one is the rotate tool. That is R on the keyboard. And yeah, it just enables you to quickly move, rotate, scale up, scale down. Just watch for the distortion when you're scaling. But yeah, rotate, scale, and move tools. Learn those, and then of course spacebar is the shortcut for the hand tool. That is how I'm moving around so fast. Oh, and you've got the zoom tool, Z as well, or Z if you're from the US. Zoom in, zoom out. So I can kind of zoom in, zoom out, scale up, scale down, rotate, move, zoom. It's like an exercise almost. You practice these kind of, 5 or so tools. And just using them, and you will be whizzing around Illustrator in no time, honestly. It's raster. Oh, okay. So Procreate uses raster. That's fine. So anyway, we're going on a tangent, on a tangent, on a tangent. So we've got this. Let's pretend I've drawn this in Procreate and I'm bringing this into Illustrator. It's a bit pixelated, but the first thing I'm going to do is go to Object and Image Trace and Make. And as you can see, it kind of it does an okay job. And from the Properties panel, I've got to the Image Trace panel, so I could bring this up. They've actually redesigned this recently as well, and I can expand this down. Whole bunch of options. First thing that I would uncheck is Snap Curves. So we don't want to snap anything to anything. We just want to kind of keep the original curves as much as possible. And then if we go Ignore Color, it will default to white. And there is a version under there. Let's just move it out of the way. And the reason that we want it to ignore the color is so we have some transparency behind. So now we have transparency, so it's automatically removed the white. Now it's important to know that when we're using image trace, everything we are doing is now vector. So this graphic is now a vector that we can scale to any size. Now we can also adjust the threshold. This will determine how much or how less of the graphic is retained. So if you have a, let's say a photograph, for example, this will kind of become a bit more obvious then. Paths, so you can increase the number of paths. As you can see down here, we've got the total number of anchor points and paths. So depending on your trace, as you can see, if I bring the number of paths down, it's a lot lower now, but it looks absolutely awful. If I crank all the paths up, we get 1,000 paths, but then actually we've got too much and it looks awful and horrible. So it's kind of finding a sweet spot between the lines. We want them smooth, but not horrible. So that's not too bad. Corners, we can play around with that and see kind of in real time how that works. I think I might go for more corners, just to square off a few edges. And then noise, not doing a lot here, but if you want to capture all of the tiny, let's just call them micro details, you know, from a photo or a sketch or something, all those tiny little kind of nuances in the drawing with the pen markings and everything, bring your noise all the way down and you'll bring through more of that very granular detail that can sometimes get lost with the other settings. Now, if you are going to be doing this for multiple images that are very similar, definitely go up here and just save this as a preset and it will load all of these settings instantly and you've got your presets there. It'll pop it on the bottom, which is nice. And once you're happy, go ahead and expand. When you click this, you won't be able to access these tracing settings anymore. So it's now basically a regular shape in Illustrator. But we can access all of the geometry. I can't say that word. Geometry. So we can access this as we would any other shape. So we could, of course, change the color as well. Let's go and change this to blue. And you can do a whole bunch of different things with it. So as you can see, the downside of the trace, if I didn't kind of try and intentionally mess this up at the beginning, it would have come through pretty clean. So if you're working in Procreate and your line work is nice and clean, let's say it's black or really dark, the darker the contrast between your, let's say, white canvas and your black lines, if you've got lots of contrast, you're going to get a much better trace. Also, the larger your raster graphic is, you'll get a better trace as well because there's more data for Illustrator's image trace to work with. So if you've got a tiny, tiny image and you blow it up so you've got like 9 pixels in total and you try tracing that, it's going to look probably awful. So if you start at a larger size, you are going to give yourself the best chance of getting a nice clean trace. So let's just try something now. So we've got quite a few wonky-ish curves here. A few hard edges down there. I just want to try this and see if it works. This would definitely work if you were doing like patterns and things, but let's have a look. Let's go to Object, Path and Smooth. This is one of Illustrator's new features for 2024 is the smooth slider. And you can drag this up and it will smooth the entire graphic out. No, so it's not really going to work in this example. It's not really working in this example unless you wanted a heavily stylized look. And I think because I've got a lot of clean lines, it's not really working either. If you have like, if you bring through a sketch and it's hand drawn, so you kind of get all the kind of hand movements or imperfections and you don't want that, you can use this smooth slider very, very slightly. And what it will do is it will smooth out the kinks in the design. I did it the other day on like a motif style pattern that someone had done, and it worked beautifully. It took their sort of hand-drawn style and those, I don't want to say imperfections, but you know, like when you're drawing, you know, your hand isn't going to be as smooth as the software unless you're like, you've been doing it for decades and decades. Or if you just don't like those kind of little lumps and bumps on a design, and that smooth slider just smoothed out the whole trace in a few seconds, whereas it would have taken hours to go and smooth out the paths manually. So here it hasn't really worked because I've got a lot of clean straight lines in the design. But if you do have much more organic shapes and they're coming in hand drawn from Procreate or pencil and paper, that smooth slider is a great way to quickly smooth them out. And if you've got a lot of graphics, it will save you a ton of time. So if you've got 20 icons that you've drawn and you need to make vector versions of them, everything we just covered will save you a huge amount of time. Anyway, thank you for that question. That was a great one. Right, back to here. Oh, I'm going to take a breath. Sipping on my coffee. Dan, what was your first contact with a vectorial program? Vectorial, is that a word? The first creative application I ever used, I don't think you can really call Microsoft Word creative. Designing websites at like 15 in Word? No, not really. Photoshop 7, I don't know if that had vector support for shapes. Aside from that, it would have been... No, do you know what? No, my first ever contact with any design software was actually when I was about 14. And I did a work experience placement at a local design company. My mum fought to get me a place there, a small company nearby, and I used Corel Draw, actually in a design studio, which was really, really cool. Yeah, that was my first taste of design. So I had to pick that up pretty quickly and then start kind of trying to create bits and bobs. That was, wow, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was interesting. Then it was all the Adobe stuff afterwards as I got a bit older and went to college. But yeah, it would have been Corel Draw would be the absolute first one. I wish I was fooling around in Illustrator instead of trying to write an email to a very problematic client about PowerPoint print settings. Oh my goodness, Ben. You have my sympathies, my friend. PowerPoint print settings. Oh no. I feel your pain. Photoshop on an Amiga in my high school yearbook class. Did Photoshop run on an Amiga? My goodness, that's going back a few years. You have no idea. Oh, believe me, I probably have some semblance of an idea. I've had my fair share of interesting clients, shall we say. Oh yeah, back in the day. Fortunately, when I work with brands now, they're all absolutely lovely. They're a pleasure to work with. But yeah, my goodness, some of my clients, one client in particular, maybe I'll tell everyone about it all someday, but I swear this guy just woke up in the morning and wanted to just cause chaos and ruin my day. I swear that's what he used to want to do. You ever get that where you just feel like someone wants to just screw up your day because they can? Yeah, just nightmare. This client got 4 other quotes for the job and showed us the spec work that was done for her. Using paint, zooming into pixels to draw. Oh, right. Well, right. Where were we? How is it 4 o'clock? How has an hour gone by already? What have I been doing? Probably talking too much. Right. Anyway. Sorry, I'm interested in Ben's story now. Work from home has destroyed mid-managers' access to their IT crowd. Oh, really? I did try working from home a few years ago. with a newborn baby in the house, it didn't really work. So external studio space was required. Okay. Yeah, so this was how I added the color in. Oh, I've got a nice little two-tone t-shirt there. Let's correct that. No, other way down. There we go. So yeah, I did it with the blob brush tool, but I would recommend the live paint bucket tool if you're wanting to do it and not go the scenic route. But I quite enjoyed brushing it in. It was nice to use a different tool that I don't really use as much as well. So that's what I did for the entire design. I actually painstakingly colored this in, as you can see, in outline mode. All of my blob brush geometry, which kind of looks it's got a little bit of Van Gogh in there, wouldn't you say? Something like that. It's almost a piece of art in itself. But yeah, so that was kind of where I got to. Then what I did was I used the live trace feature that I demoed before to kind of separate the shapes with solid colors. And I tried a version like this, kind of a more 3D version. This is just the individual shapes with a few choice gradients applied. I've just realized this is actually very reminiscent of real life. We have blonde on top, ginger down bottom. Very accurate. But then using kind of like a red gradient here and a slightly darker one to kind of act as the shadow. And remember, with the gradient tool, you can kind of move this around, or you can just click and drag and then kind of fine tune exactly where you want that gradient to go. Yeah, so you've got a bit on the neck there. So I'm using gradients to kind of add a few shadows in some places. But in the end, I was kind of like, that's going further from my sort of style of clean lines. And I wanted the line work in there because I quite like it. So I did opt to go for this type of style. But I wasn't happy with the design. So the color was a bit of an experiment. And I went back and actually refined the design. So here you can see the most notable changes to the hair. So we've got simplified hair. I've removed the mouth and I've got like a bit more of a nice shapely beard. And I've taken away the glasses and I've just kind of gone with the nose. The glasses I tried a few versions of glasses and they just weren't really looking right. And I thought, you know what? Let's go for something a bit more stylized and focus on what I can do well for now. If I want to go and add glasses later on, I can come back to that. But let's just kind of focus on the main sort of structure and composition. So I did this one here with a person. And rather than painstakingly try and draw more people, I then did some others to kind of illustrate different aspects. So this would be for the creating one, but of course we've got the kind of play and the speech bubble thing there. So it's kind of similar to learning, but I did fix that later on. So this one here would be the learning graphic, and you've got your computer, a plant pot, nice light bulb simulating learning or ideas, pencils, and yeah, a video primed to be played from the course. So which brings me back to the course. So if you've just joined and you'd like to learn everything I've learned about Illustrator, in fact, if you've enjoyed everything we've covered so far and you've learned a lot, my goodness, the course is packed full of this stuff. So if you want to just download my Adobe Illustrator brain as quickly as possible, you can do it in about, well, there's I think about 5 to 6 hours worth of video. And as part of the course, if you do ever get stuck, you've basically got direct access to me. You can send me a message anytime, get feedback on your work, or just share your work in the community with other people, other students. And yeah, so that's the course. So if you want to learn Illustrator, which is, if you want a career in like logo design, graphic design, brand design, icon design, anything like remotely graphic design based, Illustrator is the piece of software that you absolutely need to learn. Not just because it's packed full of features, but because most companies use it. It's kind of like the industry standard, and it works with Photoshop and After Effects, and yeah, you can do so much stuff. And Illustrator is the one that I use every day. I love Photoshop. Don't get me wrong. I love me some Photoshop, but Illustrator is just my go-to because I can do so much from it. So yes. And I started with another variation, so I didn't quite get to the third graphic, but I was really kind of trying to iron out the style at this stage. And I was liking how it was looking with just the line work. And this was a bit refined here, a bit of empty space up top. But yeah, I really wanted to kind of focus on getting the line work right before I dove headfirst into adding color. This was just more of an experiment. So that's when we got to this. So I kind of had a break, went away, took a breath, came back. And I actually started taking color out. So I did apply color to this version fully. And then I started removing it. And as you can see here, I've added some shadows and highlights. And if I turn this layer off, yeah, so there you go. That's how it looks when there's no shadow or highlight detail. It's just single color, which is fine. But when you start adding those details, it just really makes it look so much better. And you don't need many of these. There's only a couple of highlights, and it's really just a few shadows as well. And the way that I did this was by, again, grabbing the blob brush tool. If I turn that layer off, I'll show you now. So let's say I want to add, we'll add a shadow to the top of the hair. What I'll do is I'll eyedropper tool the hair. Now, instead of just clicking, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift click, and it's going to sample the exact color and just the color alone, not the kind of styling and everything as well. So I've now got this color, but you can see here I've got my RGB channels. Well, how do I darken that? Well, I could go in here and I could bring the color picker down. Or what I could do is switch over from the top to HSB. And this stands for hue, saturation, and brightness. And I could just bring the brightness down a pinch. And then maybe bump up the saturation. Now I've done that, I can then go and grab the blob brush tool. And again, just size it up, depending on what I'd like. Blob brush it in. As you can see, yeah, it smooths it out pretty nicely. That was pretty awful, but it smoothed it out a treat. So let's try that. Nope, that's terrible. Just undo. Go round, and then I'll try and get in that little gap. I'm going to do this a few times. I just want to get a nice smooth curve. Much easier with a tablet or stylus. That's not too bad. And yeah, so the great thing about this now is if I grab the pencil tool, remember we had that setting selected, edit selected paths. If I zoom in nice and close, let's say I wanted to taper this off here. What I can do is start to redraw over this path. I'll taper it off like that. Bring it round. And it actually reshapes the path. So the blob brush is by nature round unless I go and kind of customize it. But here what I can do is just kind of bring that up, redraw it, pop, pop, pop. There we go. Trims it off nicely. Makes it super quick and easy. You could use the pen tool as well if you wanted. Oh, and it started raining, so you might get nice rain ambience in the background. But that was a really nice way that I found to kind of work with the blob brush tool and the pencil tool together. Sometimes it doesn't, if you draw a shape, it doesn't always work. See there, sometimes you have to kind of really, you have to draw on an existing path, then bring it out and then bring it back to the existing path. Excuse me. If it doesn't work, just zoom in nice and close and just try and go over the path really carefully. Or you can play around with this distance here and bump it up and it will capture more, a little bit easier. Yeah, crazy feature. I love that feature. So as I mentioned, we could do a highlight as well, doing something with the pencil. So we'll just let's select that. Hopefully the rain isn't too annoying. Maybe it'll add some nice background ambience. So let's thicken up that stroke. And then what I can do is actually change the, well, at first let's round off the cap. So it's a nice kind of rounded edge, which matches with the rest of the style. You can choose a different width profile, and you could taper this off at the ends, or what you can do is grab the width tool. And what we'll do is we'll add a point in the middle, kind of same sort of size as it currently is. And then I'm going to bring the ends in. We could do this manually, or we could just double click and let's put in a value of 2. Yeah, 2's fine. Double click the other end and go 2. And there we go. We've got a bit of precision with this tool. And you can see it tapers off, but we've still got that nice rounded stroke cap as well. And I think if I use the... No. So you could change the color of this to anything you like. Or what you can do is use overlay or soft light blending modes. Or what I did in this example, just drop the opacity. Go for 50%. Actually, no, let's go for 70. There we go. So it adds a little highlight. And then the reason I'm using kind of white and an opacity is because if I change the color underneath, I don't have to go and update that color. It just kind of blends nicely over the top. So that was one way that I started adding these kind of shadows and highlights details. And as I mentioned, they're all on a separate layer. So I can turn them all off, on, and back on again, which makes it easy because I can lock the line. Once I've done the lines, I can lock that layer so I'm not accidentally moving it by mistake or messing something up, which is pretty helpful. Dansky is the one who introduced me to graphic design. I followed your practice videos. Oh, wow. That's amazing. Oh, wow. It's an honor. Oh, that's so cool. Hey, Tom. Tom's a student from the course. Hello, Tom. Thank you for joining the stream. Highly recommend the course. Appreciate it, Tom. Yeah, it was good to get that done. I've been planning that for a long time, and it was really really good to get the course done. And I've actually got some new lessons going up very, very soon as well. There's an entire new module going up, and it's going to be called Advanced Effects. And there's going to be some pretty cool effects added there, and it's much more advanced stuff as well. So yeah, if you finish the course already, then I think you'll really enjoy it. I'm quite excited for that. Oh, you're welcome, Sarah. Okay. So, yeah, that was what I started doing. I started playing with shading. I added shadows and highlights, as you can see here, to the whole thing. And then I thought, hang on, let's just strip out all the color and pick 2 or 3 colors, and we'll go for something a bit more stylized. So I've obviously gone with the Dansky Orange, FF412D. We've got my pasty beige creamy colored skin there, delicious, and we've also got grey for the laptop and my jeans, or whatever they are, my legs, my grey legs. And we've got a nice little bit of t-shirt sag there as well. Lovely. So yeah, once I'd done this, I was kind of like, oh, actually, yeah, this does look really stylized. You know, all the color stripped out except for a few key elements. Okay, that's cool. Let's move forward with that and produce some other graphics, because it's all very well looking at it with this one, but is this going to work, this whole 3 color thing, with the other graphics? So then I did it with this one here. And so I had a couple of these, added some subtle gradients as well, which I quite liked. So rather than just keeping solid colors, we've got the I'm going to call it the Dansky orange going through to like a lighter orange. And I did quite like that. It was quite nice. Got some nice big bold numbers as well. What font is that? I think it's Inter, yeah. And then I added some yellow. I was thinking, grey and skin color doesn't really lend itself very nicely to leaves. Grey leaves, not going to work. So maybe we could try some sort of yellow leaves. Maybe. Could I get the yellow onto me? And then I kind of took the circle away because I kind of built this sort of circle design that contained everything. But it was like, actually, if I get rid of the circle, how does it look? Yeah, and you kind of had this weird bit at the bottom. I'd sort of cut my own legs off, and I didn't really know what this piece was here. Like on this design, it makes sense because you've got like a desk surface. But here it didn't really... I don't know, it just looked a bit weird. And when I drew the legs and carried them on and tried adding shoes, again, it just looked... it didn't look great. It probably would have done if I'd given it more time, but basically I got to this point where it's kind of like, okay, I like where this is heading. I've still got another graphic to do. Do I keep the circle? Do I get rid of the circle? And I think, yeah. So ultimately, what I ended up doing was actually getting rid of the circle and going ultra stylized. So I really kind of doubled down on the whole stylized thing, and I actually took out all the color and then put back in that one orange gradient. Kept a few subtle highlights and shadows. And once I got to this point, once I'd taken the color out and just put in this one splash of bright orange, I was just like, I love it. Absolutely love it. It just, boom. I was like, this is it. And because on the page on the site, these icons, they kind of need to occupy a similar space. You know, they're all kind of very... it's very structured, so they need to have the same kind of space. And obviously having the play button here for learn and having the play button in a speech bubble here as well, it doesn't really make sense. So this one here needed to be much more about design, and so I needed to put something else in. So got rid of the circle, kind of kept the ends somewhat open. And I think this one looks great. Got the shadows and the highlights and the big bright color. And then this one, I kind of added some icons to represent some of the tools. And again, I've kept the width of all the lines exactly the same. So there's no variation on the width of the lines. That's the kind of style I've gone for. Obviously, it's gonna be the beard I'm pulling out. The bright ginger beard. Don't worry if you're not a ginger, you can still enroll in the course. And yeah, I think this one took the longest overall, as you've probably seen, but then this one took a while as well. This one happened surprisingly quick. I grabbed those arrows you might have seen on an earlier one. It's kind of meant to represent sharing your work, getting feedback, and progressing. So the on the site it will have a bit more context. But yeah, as you'll see here, what I've done is I've tried to kind of do these in sort of a triangular shape. So they are kind of occupying the same kind of space, but they're still open enough that they have like a different, they have their own original shape. They're not like all in the circle because I've got rid of that. But structurally, they all kind of feel very similar, you know? And I had to really fine tune this. It took, this is kind of the thing, you know, this is like the last sort of, that last 5% of detail is, I think, what separates really good for design from really, really, really good design, you know? Is painstakingly going through the details, and this was a bit higher and a bit bigger before, and it just looked like off balance. So I had to kind of keep adjusting and tweaking. This one here, it did have an island before. So it had the kind of the whole iPhone island thing going on. But then the phone was too tall, which made the arrows too tall, which made everything too tall. So it really did take a lot of fine tuning to balance all three designs. And the text underneath was pretty straightforward. Inter is the font on my site, and I have a weird love for having black lettering with a colored full stop for some reason. Not sure why. I just really like it. Kind of I mean, I do love a good clean sans serif face, and it's nice sort of modern illustrations as well. But I think that splash of color kind of ties the text to the illustration a bit more, and it kind of makes the two feel as if they are one. So, and yeah, this was the point that when I actually reached this point, I've probably still got a few bits I'm going to fine tune. I'm going to zoom in and just check all the curves are nice and the highlights are smooth. Like here, for example, I'm not a massive fan of how this is straight. I think the shadow should curve up towards the edges. Real tiny details. But I got to this point and was like, yes, this is it. I absolutely love these. This is the way to go. I just started graphic design a month ago. Do you have any advice for me? I'm quite lost. Wow. I mean, that's a loaded question right there. Okay. So top level advice, I would say practice lots of different types of design, whether it's kind of t-shirts, print design, logos, icons, posters, flyers, business cards. Just practice loads of different stuff and try and get a bit of a taste for all of the different types of design and just see what you enjoy the most. That is what I would say would be the first thing, is to just kind of practice. The next thing would be to pick some software and learn it. It's going to sound like a plug, but Adobe Illustrator is the one that you want to learn for graphic design because you can do pretty much everything. So shameless plug. Look, if you want to learn Adobe Illustrator, this will teach you everything I know. So if you're just getting started, that course is just an absolute goldmine of information. It will teach you what I've learned over the last 17 years in a matter of hours and days. Yeah, I would practice lots of different types of design, try and get a bit of a feel for what you like doing the most. And then whatever tool you end up doing, or whatever course, basically do a course. Even if you don't do my one, just do a course that with an instructor that you like the look of and the sound of, and whose voice you can listen to for a good few hours, and do an intensive course to try and learn the software as thoroughly as you can, because anybody can have an amazing idea. Even someone who isn't a creative designer could have a cool idea. But all these tools over here, and there are many of them in Illustrator, the more of these tools you know, the more things that you will actually be able to create. But even going on a step further than that, the more of the tools you know and understand more in depth, that's going to enable you to choose the right tool to solve the right problem, which is going to lead to better quality work. So for example, some people might use the pen tool. They might think, I'm going to draw this shape with the pen tool. Looks like a sort of a duck, actually. And I'll do something like this. And the first thing I'm going to look at, I'm going to go, well, hang on, look, these curves, they're not smooth. They should be smooth. They don't feel great. This kind of bows up a little bit. You know, the pen tool for this kind of shape might not be the right tool. Instead, consider using the pencil tool with the smooth settings turned on. And you can already see that smoother, a little bit of a kink there, but easily fixed. You can't fix it as easily with the pen tool, but you can smooth this out with the pencil tool. Or you might say, let's go and grab the smooth tool. And I can quickly smooth that out. So more organic shapes, for example, are much easier to draw and faster with the pencil tool. If you want more precision, like geometric precision, I can't say that word, precision, geometric precision for logo design, then you might want the pen tool, but then drawing curves, not that precise. You probably want the arc tool, because now you can just draw perfect curves really, really fast. And, you know, that might be the way to go. Or you might just use the ellipse tool and then cut away segments instead. So rather than kind of trying to pen tool something like this, whatever this is, I've got no idea. Let's say a chain link. something like that. You know, so there's loads of different, there's like for every problem, there's a tool that you probably shouldn't use to solve it. There's a tool that can solve it, but it's fine. But then if you use the right tool, it's just going to make it way better. I'll try and show you another example, actually. So you could use the pen tool to do this. Let's try and do that there. I've created a flower. And we'll duplicate this down and rotate it around like that. Here we go. And there we go. I've created a flower, and that might be fine. But I mean, I drew it freehand with the pen tool. So first of all, you can see if I draw a big old rectangle, it ain't straight. The flower is a bit wonky for starters, and the symmetry is way off. And there's just, you know, so it looks fine. You could use that, but there's a much better way to do that. So I would use the rectangle tool. What are we doing? Rotate it 45 degrees. We'll round off just 2 corners. That's quite a nice petal. I could actually use the scale tool to make more of like an eyeball shape if I wanted to chunk it up or make the petal thinner. So I can, as you can see, this scale tool can be quite temperamental. So I can adjust the scale there. Let's make it a bit thinner. And all of this is perfectly upright, perfectly symmetrical. And then I can select the rotate tool, rotate this round, and then Command or Control D to repeat that transformation. And there you go. Just by using the right set of tools, I've got more precision, but I've actually created something that is higher quality. When you use the wrong tools, or even worse, use the wrong tools and use them badly if you don't have the experience with them, that's when you're going to get the inconsistencies in your line work. And that's the kind of stuff that I pick up on when we do design review on a Tuesday. That's the kind of stuff my eye is immediately drawn to, is those kind of details. And I think that those little details, they're probably some of the most important parts to the design, I think. You know, you can have an amazing design, but I do think that the best designers are the ones that just work on their creative work on a really granular level. Not saying I'm the best designer in the world, I'm not, but that's one thing that I do very well, is I look at things on a very micro granular level. I'm obsessed with the detail. And I think that's what helps me have a good eye for design and being able to kind of point these things out. So yeah, I guess that's the takeaway on what I'm saying is kind of learn some software and learn the tools and learn the tools well, because it will actually improve the quality of your work when you're using the right tool to solve the right problem. So yes, hopefully that's helpful anyway. I got to go to sleep. Enjoy the stream. Oh, thank you for staying up. I really do appreciate it. Have a good sleep. Does the making graphic design for animation is different for static? Does making graphic design for animation different from static? Yeah, slightly different. You can go from Illustrator to After Effects. So After Effects is great for animation, and you can take your Illustrator file into After Effects. Do you do it from the menu? Or no, I think you can just save it, actually. I think you save it as an Illustrator file, and you can open that Illustrator file directly in After Effects, and it will retain your layers. How long does it take you to master graphic design? It's a difficult question to answer, really, because I don't really believe in mastery as like a definitive thing. Like people might look at what I do and say, oh, he's mastered graphic design or mastered Illustrator. But because I keep learning every day, I will always feel like I've never truly, I don't believe that I can ever truly master it, because I will always learn something, or someone will teach me like a different way of doing something. So because I'm learning, I kind of every day I don't really believe in mastery. I think people can be like obviously experts in their field, but mastery in like the kind of the very raw sense of the word. I mean, I guess to try and answer your question in a way that's a bit more useful is I think to get. I mean, it depends on the person. It depends on the person. If you are a naturally creative person, I think you could develop your skills very quickly by following a structured course. If you want to do it quickly, don't. I mean, I love tutorials, but don't just watch random videos because they will teach you pieces of the puzzle. Whereas actually, if you build the puzzle row by row or in a more structured way, you'll learn all the stuff in the right order, and you'll just learn it more efficiently. I spent a lot of years just doing tutorials, most of my career actually, and the problem is with that is you actually miss out quite a lot of basic stuff, and you get like I don't know a decade into your career, and there's things that you don't know that are pretty basic about the software. I didn't know that you could make custom guides in Illustrator from a shape for far too long. If you've got no idea what I'm talking about, you can take a shape that you've made and you can actually go and generate some guides from it. Oh, hang on. Hang on. Let's try it with it. It might need to be a single shape. Let's try this one. Guides, make guides. There we go. Yeah, so it needs to be a single shape. And the great thing about this is because now they're technically official guides, you can actually snap to them. I didn't know that for the longest time. In my course, I teach that very early on because, do you know what I mean? It's one of those things that everyone should know. So, yeah, definitely do like a course with some structure because you'll learn the basic stuff and not miss it out. But in terms of how long it would take to become like I guess you could say a professional designer, it depends how hard you work, how much you want to learn, how you choose to learn. Yeah, just lots of things really. I think if you've got the creativity and you're willing to learn, you could probably pick it up quite quickly. I think with what I do in terms of critiquing and pointing out all these things that I do, I think a lot of what I know and the feedback I give on a Tuesday, I think it just comes from experience. I think it just comes from being in that design world for 17 years at this point. I've just seen so many designs and I've got an eye for detail as well. And I think there are some things that just come with time and years of experience, but yeah, I think when it comes to actually like getting into design now, pick some software, learn it well, do lots of different designs, practice, design stuff all the time, find out what you enjoy, work on your communication skills, the ability to email, very important, and present work to clients. Confidence is very important as well. You could be the best designer in the world, but if you cannot confidently present your work, it's going to really kind of stifle your ability to progress. That's one thing I didn't appreciate enough. I focused on the craft and not how to communicate with people that I need to win over when I'm presenting ideas and concepts. So that's definitely something that I think you should work on as well. But yeah, anyway, there's a little kind of bucket list of things to learn. Hopefully that's helpful anyway. Can I be a graphic designer and video editor at the same time? Absolutely. That's what I do. Yeah, I kind of stumbled and fell into video creation just through YouTube, really. I'd never done video before, and I thought, let's have a go at this YouTube business and see what we can do with it. Obviously, to do that, I had to learn some video editing software. And is Dansky your real name? No, it's not. It's Dan or Daniel. Daniel, if you're my mother and I'm 5 years old and I've been naughty, I get called Daniel. She still calls me Daniel sometimes now. It doesn't work though. If I do something naughty now, I'm what, 36 years old. So you know you can't. As a parent, you can't really tell your 36-year-old kid off in the same way. But yeah, Dan. My friends call me Dan, so Dan or Dansky is absolutely fine. Hello, Dansky. Can you give me a piece of advice to improve my skills on photo manipulation? Yes, actually, I'll write it down just so I don't end up waffling on. Right. So this is what you want to do to get better at photo manipulation. You want to follow a structured process. So compose your scene. Oops. Got the mic in front of the keyboard. Compose your scene first. Get all of the different elements in your scene. Then you balance the exposure. And you work on the lights and the darks and that kind of thing. Then you do the color balancing with a color balance adjustment layer. And this one here is with an exposure layer. And these 3 steps will just follow these 3 steps. And don't start adding too many effects. This is the fundamentals. I made this mistake as well. So yeah, get all your images in, cut them out, put them in the scene. Then you want to balance the, add a hue saturation adjustment layer, make it grayscale so you strip out the color, and then add an exposure adjustment layer for each image in your scene, because they're all going to be shot under different lighting conditions. So you've got to balance the lights and the darks between, let's say, all 5 or 6 images, so they all feel like they're in the same scene. Once you've balanced the exposure and the shadows and the highlights are balanced, turn off that grayscale layer. Then you want to add a color balance adjustment layer to every image or every layer as well, because one image might be warmer than the other, one might be cooler, and you have to balance all of them. Once you've done those 3 things, you'll be primed to start adding like loads of cool effects and things. And yeah, it's I think I've showed it before on stream. I've showed some work, I think it was a few weeks ago now, of a wolf piece of photo manipulation where I didn't follow this process at all, and it looked awful. And then I tried it again, it looked awful. And then I followed a much more structured process and it looked all right. Turned out pretty well. And this is what I do now. So get the fundamentals of your scene correct first. Composition, exposure, color balancing. That's something that a lot of people do get wrong. I got it wrong. And now you're not going to anymore. And I'm sure I've got some Photoshop videos on photo manipulation on the channel as well. So, if you'd like to learn that in a bit more depth, then there's also that. I'm also going to be doing one-to-one coaching soon. I think I mentioned this before. I'm still setting up the web page and everything, but I'm going to be doing one-to-one coaching. So, still working on a few details, pricing and that kind of thing. But if anyone is interested and you want to just learn everything I know basically for any of these different apps, I will be offering that soon on a one-to-one basis, just because I love teaching so much. So, yeah, looking forward to that. Moosh, I'm super late, but I'm here. I'll end up on the replay crew later. Nice. Hope you're doing well. I'm very good, thank you. Thank you for stopping by. And if you've already had to jump out, well, I'll see you on the replay crew later. Do you think there is a big room for new designers at this time? Absolutely. Designers are amazing. And we're always going to be in demand. I think the landscape with AI and stuff is changing, so our jobs and roles and what we do might change, but yeah. Absolutely. Designers are here to stay. We are. Nice to meet you, Dan. My name is Samuel and I am from India. Oh, hello, Samuel from India. Thank you so much for joining the stream. One-to-one sounds great. Yeah, thank you, Roxy. I thought it's the kind of thing that just isn't an option at the minute. And So I thought it's one of those things that I can add a coaching section to my website, and I know too much stuff, more than I can put into YouTube videos. I just and so I think it's kind of, I do so much stuff that I don't even show people. I've done a few game UI designs. I've done one recently that I think is awesome, and no one's seen it yet. And so it's just like I can do more than I actually show and that I put on YouTube. And I think the best way to just kind of teach people that is to just do some one-to-ones or maybe some group coaching sessions, um, and just teach kind of very specific things to people directly. For example, I don't have a Photoshop course up at the minute. I don't have one, but I could very easily do some coaching and offer Photoshop skills or photo manipulation or video editing or how to make a YouTube channel. Or so yeah, it's going to be nice to just even have that as an option. So if people want to pillage my brain for knowledge, then it's just like, here you go. I'm opening up my brain. Right. Yeah, so that's kind of where I ended up with the illustration. So it kind of, I always like to kind of jump back to this. This is where I started. By the end of day one, that was what I had. And I was like, this is fine. The secret ingredient to getting to this end result here, which I gotta be honest, I really do love. Like, I don't want to sound like arrogant or anything, but like, I really love these illustrations. I think I kind of surprised myself a little bit, actually. I think that's what it is. I think I didn't expect to love what I'd created so much. I was really kind of, that sort of negative voice was really like, oh, what if this doesn't look good? Oh, what if this takes you ages to make? And it took a couple days in the end. And I love the style. It just turned out really, really, really nicely. I love it way more than I do this. So I guess, yeah, just to end there on like a message of hope. If you are trying to do something and it doesn't look great, just keep working at it. Try different things. As you saw here, I tried a whole bunch of different directions. I tried the kind of 3D thing, which looked quite different. I tried getting rid of the circle, switching up the colors. I did a whole bunch of other ones that you can't see on this artboard. Literally just iterations all over the place. And yeah, I arrived at this. So yeah, just, don't give up. Oh, thank you, Kai. I appreciate that. Also, I used the reflect tool the other day and I thought of you. I really did. I can't remember what it was for. Oh, what was it? Oh, it was some sort of shape. I drew something and I was like, I'm gonna use the reflect tool. Kai will be proud of me. Yeah, it was faster. I think it's like I said before, it's one of those habits where I've just picked it up, I duplicate, I flip it around. It's so easy. But yeah, the reflect tool, O on the keyboard, it is quicker. It is quicker. Yeah. Ah, yes. Oh, good. I feel like you're proud of me, Kai. Tom says the selective use of color leaves such an impact. Thank you, Tom. Yes. Yeah, I did quite like it. It's funny though, isn't it? The way you can add more and more and color and shadows and detail and all this kind of stuff. And actually it's when you start taking things away from the design that sometimes you kind of go, oh, actually it didn't need all that. Like, I think these would look good in color. They would look cool. But this just feels me. It feels like it has that sort of Dansky orange. And I like the kind of mix up of the linear style with the gradient as well. Like, you only get the shadows and the highlights in the orangey section. And yeah, it just feels very, very stylized. It doesn't feel like generic. Whereas I think when I was creating the other one over here, it just felt like, I don't know. I'm finding it hard to describe. It just looked, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was just the flat colors. I think it looked a bit better once I'd added kind of the, I think this one looked a bit better once I'd started adding the shading and stuff. But yeah, these results at the end. The circles as well. I kept those circles for a long time. And then right at the end, it was just like, oh, hang on. Let's just get rid of the circle. Connect all this up. Actually, yeah, that works. Yeah, I know. It's funny old thing. Design process. So to the person who was new that was asking about a new designer, what it's like becoming a designer if you're getting into it. Design is not a straight line. I'm sure many designers here in the chat will tell you it's not a straight line. This is the design process. It's like a wibbly wobbly line, like a big ball of spaghetti sometimes. And sometimes you kind of go away, you'll sleep on it, you'll come back, you'll wake up and go, that's what I need to do. It's honestly, it is bonkers the way things work out sometimes. Roxy says, I have a few years experience in architecture, but I feel graphics are the one for me. I learn all the time and I Google it if I get stuck. More and more often I landed on your videos. Yes! Dominating the design space. I'm so very proud my work here is done. Thank you, Kai. Oh, Mike, hello. Haven't been able to pop in here more than a few minutes. Did you pull concepts from Gen AI and build these icons? They look really nice. Yes. Yeah, so what I did, Mike, was I was saying at the beginning that I didn't want to just generate something with Midjourney and kind of throw it in as the final design. But I kind of used Midjourney to get an idea of the kind of style that I liked. So this is kind of this type of graphic is very sort of similar to my design style when I'm doing icons and logos and things. Very, very linear. It's just very, very clean. Probably a bit less. This is a bit more sort of, it's not realistic, but do you know what I mean? It's a bit more that direction. This is a bit more two-dimensional. And I like the style as well. So that was kind of where I started. Sketching out, adding colors, trying a few different styles. We've got the 3D version versus linear. But yeah, this was really just a springboard to kind of just get a rough idea, really. And it's funny, actually, if I take this and dump it next to the final one, I mean, this has been quite a useful experience of using AI. I think, like I said before, sometimes AI everything all the time can be a bit much. But if you look at these two, obviously they're not the same. There's no kind of like ripping off the design or the copying. But it really did help me get the structure down of the human form in particular, something that I mentioned that I struggle with sometimes. It really did kind of help me just get some of those curves and shapes and things in the right place. And before I did have a chair. There was actually a chair. So we had the chair and the desk and everything. But in the end, we got rid of it. Tells more of a story this way. I think they're great. Oh, thank you, Tom. Yeah, it just feels a bit more on brand as well. Like the whole kind of, orange thing. I'm trying to dominate orange. I do love me a good gradient. Name says, would you make a video on shadows, highlights, tone, tint, etc., how to add them on the artwork or design? Yeah, that's a really good idea, actually. I think a lot of what I've covered today, and especially in terms of the shadows and the highlights, the vector ones, that's not something I've taught here on the channel. So that's probably a really good idea. Yes, that is a good idea. Thank you. I like that. How long did it take you to arrive to the final design? I think these took a couple of days in total. What day is it now? Thursday? Oh no, I think I started on Monday. So what's that? 3 days. Yeah, not like 3 days working intensely all day, every day. I do like a few hours at a time. Probably like under 12 hours in total to create these. It wouldn't have been more than that. That's probably a bit of an overestimation as well, but Yeah, probably something like that. And like I say, this is the kind of the more illustrative stuff is further away from what I do on a regular basis. So this kind of stuff takes me a bit longer. It's like if I start filming B-roll for something for a video, I don't do B-roll every day, so it just takes me longer than the stuff I do day in, day out. Kai says the gradient, the color looks great. I wish the speech bubble on the share bit was a tad larger. Speech bubble. Oh yeah, I see what you mean. I mean, I could actually, yeah, maybe the orange one actually is popping out the phone. So maybe that one actually does become larger. That is a pretty good suggestion. God, Kai, you should be a designer, mate. Yeah, maybe something like that. So it's highlighting the speech bubble. I like that. I might play around with that a bit later. Nice. Thank you for that one. My brain wants just a bit more color on that one to match. Oh, right. So some more color. Yeah, I think the other way to go, I might play around with it actually. The other way to go is actually one of the arrows. The tallest arrow could have some color, perhaps. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's a lot less orange than the other two. I have a friend who is taking concepts from Midjourney like this, but for a children's book, and it's a great new process starting point. Oh, interesting. Yeah, Midjourney can generate some pretty insane stuff, but I'm definitely finding it useful at the minute for inspiration and ideas and things. Appreciate that the designer in the middle icon seems to have tech neck, very true to life. Yeah, you're right there, Mike. You're definitely right there. Let's just whoa. There we go. Let's extend that. Actually, I wonder if I could puppet warp that. Should we try and puppet warp that? Let's see if this works. Where's the puppet warp tool? Oh, this might work. Whoa! Oh, goodness. Let the chaos begin. Oh. Wait a second. What's this feedback? No. 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 Oh, goodness, I'm an idiot. Do you know, it's almost a shame he doesn't have a face now. I think you could have quite a lot of fun with that. What? He's like recoiling in horror. What is this feedback? Oh yeah, it would be quite fun to try and add some motion to this. In fact, it's funny you should mention that, Tom. I'm kind of toying with it, even if it's something simple, like just having these icons kind of floating up and down, or the bulb maybe going up and down, or maybe the arrows just doing something just really subtle, but something that could kind of bring it to life on the page. That could be quite nice. Oh, 12 hours. I'm kind of pulling that number out of thin air, really. Like it could have been 8, it could have been 9. Honestly, I wasn't keeping count. I kind of stop and start work, as I get inspired. So, yeah, it's not definitively like it took 12 hours. But also, I'm obsessed with the craft and the details of it as well. So I will painstakingly go over a lot of the tiny, more granular details. I'll probably do that earlier in the process than I should, which does waste time. I should probably focus more on getting everything looking right and then drilling down the details, but it's just the way I am. Oh, I did that for a coloring book I created recently. Super useful. Nice. Oh, yeah, that's a good idea. I suppose, yeah, you could generate some kind of black and white illustrations and then just use that as a coloring book. Dansky gone psycho. Dansky's gone a bit mental. Next step is to animate these, yes. Design submissions aren't open at the moment, Gayan, but they will be soon. I kind of take submissions in bulk. Yeah, that's a good idea. Focusing the animation on the text and the small icons. Yeah, that's a good shout. Yeah, maybe just leaving the, yeah, just animating some of the subtle elements. Maybe on this one, animating the comment. But yeah, no, I like your suggestion, Kai, of maybe making it a bit bigger as well. That could be the animation. That comment gets pulled out in orange. Yeah, there's quite a few things we could do with that. I could relate to the character the way you were moving his head and neck. How about that for an animation? Yeah. Oh, I like it. Dansky emojis. Nice. That would be fun, wouldn't it? What is this art for? So this is for that. I'm glad you asked. This is for the sales page for my Adobe Illustrator masterclass. So basically, at the moment, I'm redesigning this entire page. I think it's fine what I did at launch, but I think that the sales page could do a better job of just basically selling the course and telling people how awesome it is, because I'm really proud of it. I really am. It's been updated now for Illustrator 2024, so there's new lessons in there. There's a new module coming with some cool effects. And as you go down the page, you can see there's space here for graphics. And I just feel like these graphics aren't really doing the course justice. I feel like they could be a bit better. So that's why I wanted some custom illustration, just to show a bit more of my work on the page and a bit more illustrative work on a page that is advertising a course for Adobe Illustrator. I wanted it to be in kind of my own unique style, and obviously you can see I've got the orange. That's kind of my brand color. So these illustrations should fit quite nicely with the coal sort of orange thing that I've got going on as well. So yeah, a lot of this will be restructured and the design will be changed and those illustrations will slot in. I mean, like this bit here, there's text and information and there's icons, which are fine. But I think these illustrations do a much better job of, selling that sort of educational process of learning, creating what you've learned and then sharing it and getting feedback. I think it does a better job than this. So yeah, lots of lovely things people have said about the course, which is nice. So yeah, so there you go. If you want to learn everything that I do know about Adobe Illustrator, that is my course. I should probably throw the link in the description, shouldn't I? Let's do that there. But yeah, that will teach you everything I know in a matter of hours. If you smash through it really fast, it'll teach you everything I know in a few days. It's about 5 to 6 hours worth of video, and it basically trims out all the fluff. So I've done things the wrong way for years. There's things that I've not learned, things until I've got years into my career. Basically, I'm stripping out all of the stuff that slowed me down learning, and I've streamlined it all into a really tight, condensed course that will just teach you everything I know. So I don't think there is a faster way to learn Adobe Illustrator in its entirety on the planet. There might be, but I don't think there is. This course has just got my sort of my unique teaching style. So if you watch my YouTube videos and the way I kind of flow from one thing to the next, the course is very much in that style. And yeah, I'm very proud of it. It's nice to get that one done. But I need to do a better job marketing it, which is exactly why I did this, and it's kind of the whole page is getting an overhaul as well. So yeah. The reflect tool is actually covered in the course, Kai. It's just one of those things that it hasn't been ingrained in me as a habit. I always default to the old habit. What's your site built in? Webflow. Yeah, it's all done in Webflow. And I just love using Webflow because it enables me to design the site exactly how I want it without any code. And yeah, remember when a friend told me about that. I was like, what? What is this Webflow platform? This exists? And it's only got better over the years. It's absolutely brilliant now. But yes. Oh, cool. Fun stream, guys. Fun stream. Thank you so much for joining. I've had an absolute blast. And hopefully me waffling on through this process was helpful. I know we covered a whole bunch of drawing techniques and things earlier. As I was going through this process, I was just thinking to myself, there's a lot of things in this process, from the tools and techniques, but also my own thought process and how I was feeling at the start versus the end, that I think a lot of people would benefit from. So hopefully this kind of insight into my brain and this design process has been helpful. These aren't all of the iterations. There were loads. There's like an entire giant artboard full of slight variations and things, but this is the kind of general broad overview of the entire process. Oh, really? Framer? Oh, okay, I've heard of Framer. Yeah, that sounds interesting. I'm taking classes to learn Webflow. Can't wait to become competent with it. Yeah, it is useful. There's a lot of platforms out there like Shopify and Squarespace. They're great if you want like to set up a website and not fuss too much over the design. But if you're like me and you want control over every aspect of the design, yeah, Webflow, and it sounds like Frame is similar as well. Like those platforms, they give you that control, but you don't need to know all the code, which is just brilliant. So I can just do what I love to do, which is the design side of it. I can obsess over the spacing pixel to pixel, and I don't need to mess around with any code, which is great. Oh, the animation stuff's incredible. Webflow will give you tons more of control. It's actually a little more for devs. Okay, interesting. So Framer's really good for animation. Don't tempt me, Michael. Don't tempt me. Right. Rebuilding the whole platform. We're moving to Framer. My goodness. Oh, interesting. Just not built out features. Okay. So I'm sure, yeah, they're gonna add more features as time goes on. You've been informed. Thank you very much for informing me, Mike. That seed's gonna sit there now, and I'm gonna wake up like later on at midnight and just be like, I need to rebuild the entire website in Framer now. That is literally how my brain works. Damn it, Michael. What have you done? Oh, that's amazing. I'm glad you're feeling inspired. I'm feeling inspired as well. I had a ton of fun doing these. Yeah, Mike's giving me the night sweats. That sounds a bit weird, doesn't it? You know what I mean. Yeah, thanks for that. Poppy's going to be like, Dan, what are you doing? Man, must rebuild website. Must use Framer. Oh, hello to you in Karachi. Right, cool. Oh, amazing. That's going to wrap up the stream for today. I'm going to go and give my vocal cords a rest and probably drink some more coffee. But yeah, as always, guys, you've been absolutely fantastic. Oh, there's the course again. Oh, hey. Yeah, so thank you so much for joining the stream. I've had a ton of fun. You've been amazing as always. And yeah, have a fantastic week, a fantastic weekend. And I will see you probably next week. See you later, guys. Oh, where's the quit stream button? Oh, there we go. Bye.